All right, hello everybody. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of The Sound of Sosa. I have Renee, the owner and CEO of One True Match. I will have her introduce herself again, and we will jump back into some good conversation.
Hello, all. I am excited to be here to continue our chat that we started forever ago in the airport, of all places. But God always has the best timing of when you meet who you do. And I'm excited to just keep our conversation flowing, however it may be. And I am Renee Richel, as you had mentioned, and I own a global matchmaking company, finding people the love of their life, as well as helping coach them to not only be ready but prepared then for a forever marriage that is all about a covenant and exciting, like liberating relationship for life.
And no, it's interesting too because like I like to think about what we have talked about, and I know that at first I had said it wrong, and the way I kind of think about what you do is you give people the foundation and the building blocks for a successful relationship too. And that is so important. Like it when you look at other, I hate to even relate them to you because the apples to oranges really like a dating site, it really is. You are very different from what you do because you focus on the relationship and what it takes to actually continue a successful, healthy, loving, caring, encompassing relationship, and you don't ever see that really. At least I mean, I haven't really delved into that world, admittedly, but from what I understand of it, it was that I don't believe a lot of other places do that, and that's what really sets you aside, and that's why I felt so bad the whole week thinking about how I called it something. I called it like I don't remember even what I said exactly.
Fight or something, I think you said, which everybody
Yeah,
does. And
yeah,
my whole purpose is to change that mindset because that's what everybody always says. So are you like a dating app or are you like a dating service? I was like, no, there's millions of those out there, right? But
yeah.
yeah, we're the old fashioned way of connecting people organically, but interviewing them. I mean, the best way to look at it is I say we're like recruiters for the heart instead of the career, right?
Yeah.
And if you do exist, like I don't know if you ever seen that movie. I think it's Pray, Eat, Love.
I've heard of it. I don't believe I've ever watched it.
Okay, that's okay. Well, and so it's about a woman's story that she basically is trying to figure out life, and then she goes through. There's a moment that I'll never forget because it was during the time I found my faith, and she never had really had a relationship with God. She was trying to figure life out. She didn't know if she wanted to stay married or not. And she falls at like this trunk on her knees. And she's like, God, like, I don't know if you exist or not, but if you do, right now is a moment. If you could like come into my life. And I remember thinking like, okay, well, I mean, maybe that's what I do. Like, you fall on your knee, I don't know, have a conversation. And truly, like, I feel like after that movie came out, it gave me this like idea to be like, okay, let me surrender. Let me really actually do it and mean it and feel it, right? And then there's just this empowerment that comes over you. And I just remember feeling like God's like, I mean, I remember bawling down in tears. I was like, what's happening? And I just had this overwhelming feeling of like, get up. I've got you. I need you to go on this path and I need you to trust me, right? And I'm like, what path, right? And
Yeah.
everybody's like, you're going to do something with marriage and relationships. And they had like a huge group of people praying on me. And I'm like, okay, right? And so I look back at that. And then to this day, like with pastors I've spoken with and everything else, right? They're like, we went to school to learn a lot of, just things about relationships and stuff like that. But they're like, but we haven't lived a lot of the experience that you have.
Yeah.
And so it's a gift that, God has given you. And so that's why everybody believes you should do something with it, so that you can relate to all the stories that tons of people have been through, right? From being little all the way up to, now and how to really coach and guide them, not direct them, but guide them into the right, healthiest relationships. So, and then I think I had shared with you, when I realized I had married the wrong person out of my own will and not asking God for his permission, right? I was like, I cannot believe I actually did this and have made a mistake. And so I was like, I don't want anybody else in my world to ever be in that position to make that mistake. So I'm going to research and study this, and I'm going to put together some type of teaching. And this is going to be my mission just for free. I'm going to teach people relationship skills so they don't get in the wrong relationships. And had a test pilot of like 8 or 10 singles, male and female. And it was like 8 weeks long. People wanted more and more information. And we finally honed it down to a 5-hour course.
Wow, that's awesome.
That we teach today. It's called Love Starts With You. And it's, people can do it. And I mean, I've taught it on stage in 5 hours. I feel like it's rushed, but it's really designed to do over like a 6-week period. So you're learning, you're processing, you're thinking, and it's designed for singles, dating, engaged, and married couples. Cause I was also like, that's the problem. When you're dating, there's nothing for you until you're engaged.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, the goal is to teach it when you're single, to then you get buddies. I think I was sharing with you. So you have practice, or if you take it with your mate, you also practice like learning together, but you do it separately because it's so important to have your own mind, your own identity to then share. And then that's when it turned into the matchmaking. So people were like, I want to meet other like-minded people that are willing to do the education and do like the foundation building early on, so that they'll be successful forever going forward. And I think I told you I started researching matchmaking because I was like, matchmaking, I don't know anything about the matchmaking industry. Just like I was like, I don't know how to, like, as far as relationship goes, I'm like, what do I know about that? But you research, you pray on it. God gives you all the resources and tools you need. And then I was like, well, I love people. I always have. So it's fun to be able to just embrace and get to know, like you said, you love interviewing people. I love hearing people's stories all day long. And it's like when you heard this story and that miraculously story, and it's like you could put them together, and then there's the attraction, then it's like fireworks, right?
Yeah. And it's just it's a great foundation to have, to also be able to you don't need to build it around God, but it's sure. I mean, one quote my pastor used that has stuck with me is, a double bonded rope is never as strong as a triple bonded one. And a marriage is a triple bonded rope. You have your mate, and then you have God with you, and Him in all His forms. And when I say that, I mean like Jesus and the Holy Spirit and so on. The Trinity.
Have you ever heard of Chip Ingram?
Chip Ingram. No, it doesn't sound familiar, but
Look him up because there's actually a course that he has that you can take with your lovely bride. And I mean, he teaches it live and in person, but who knows where? I don't know if he's still teaching anymore. But I mean, there's like an actual, course you can take or whatever, and it's called God's Design for Your Marriage. And he goes through a lot of different things, and he's funny. Like when he teaches it, because we sometimes run the course at our office of people that come in. It's like date night or whatever, but you can literally do it from your own home. He's funny, he's entertaining. He's a pastor, right? So he also has just a little bit of also more just knowledge in God. But he always says like God first, then your mate, then your family. But yeah, I think it just goes to like the whole reason it's so important to have God is because we all get off track every day, like who God's designed us to be, and we try to take over, right? And so by having a God-centered life, right, you're also reminded each day that like I get to wake up, I'm serving the Lord, everything I do is with Him in my heart. And so the day is that much more intentional, it's that much more purposeful. And when things get rough or things get tough, it's because we've walk so far away from really what it is His design is for our life, and then that the relationship is a blessing that He's given us. So why are we treating our mates like they're chopped liver and they're just like no different than a brother or sister growing up that we were not really nice to during that time? Right? I mean, we all had those moments where we were really not nice to our brother or sister, right? Or if you had a sibling or whatever it was. But
I do. I have plenty. Yeah. Yeah, plenty of those instances as well. I was the youngest, so I got the brunt of it, but there's definitely times where that's been reciprocated back. So
it's true. It's true.
And yeah, it's not a good habit to get into at all. One thing that is hard to do is to know that certain relationships call for certain things. A friendship is I feel the foundation of every relationship, because I mean, you can't really be in a marriage without having the civilities and the niceties of a friendship first, because there's been times where I was in a relationship where I was like, man, I can't even get the niceties of this. What am I doing? Trying to grasp for things above that, when in reality I'm not even getting the base level of friendship. So what am I doing here? And eventually they got work past and everything like that. But it's hard. Marriage is a very, very hard thing. And the we have such a high divorce rate, but in all essence, when you truly break down what marriage is and all the variables that come into it, it's an experiment that, I mean, can almost never be repeated. And I say that like, I mean, like the exact outcome of a individual marriage can never be repeated, because there's so many things that happen that coincide with it. So, just we can break it down to a raw form. Let's say you have two individuals who meet each other, who fall in love with each other at that point in their life. We'll just give it an age of 25. 5 years pass. Those individuals have grown. What way they've grown, nobody knows but God and themselves, and maybe the mate does too. But in essence, only them and God know. And so, if they didn't try to grow together, they might have grown apart. And so being able to come back together, that makes it even harder if they don't have the foundation that you offer and that you give your, I don't exactly know what you reference her as, but for a layman's term, your clients, you give them that foundation that allows them, if they do grow apart, they're going to be able to grow back together, because they have that strong foundation of being able to talk with each other, of knowing that God is there to help guide them back to each other, and they both have the understanding that, hey, they can't control it, they need to ask God for the assistance, and he will guide them in the way that will bring them back together. And I think without what you do, I think there will be more failed marriages, because people don't have those building blocks, they don't have the dedication. And that's why I love it too, that it's all encompassing with the Lord, because it's hard to see through a lot of the disparities and troubles of life, and find yourself at a point to where you can bring yourself back together with someone, because life throws a lot of wrenches at you, and the cog machine is really easy to get one stuck in there. So
Right. And I always say, like, I mean, marriage is not a job. It should be a career, and a career should be rewarding. And as you do better in your career, you get another promotion, you get another promotion, you get another promotion, right? And so it's incredible the way that people then look at it as like such a bad thing, but it should be, and it is. You're right, it is work. And when you talked about friendship, it's important, because your friendships, when you're single, you have a ton of friends, right? You hang out with, and everybody can't wait to be in a relationship, but the dynamic of your relationship changes when you're the one who gets coupled before your single friends, because then your single friends still want to hang out, but yet then you want to do more couple things, and it's like you have to balance it all on top of, like, having just the time for your mate and all those other things. And I think one time I had heard from somebody that said, it's funny how you can take a baby home and you can start a marriage without a training man, like without the instructions, but you get like a new computer, or you get anything else, and it has like
a
a book,
tutorial. Yeah.
like a tutorial, right? But when it comes to like kids and marriage, it's like, have fun, here you go, right? So like our couples that we just started actually doing this probably about 9 months ago, and I'm really excited that I would love to. I don't know if I said this on the last one, but I'm like, I know I can't do this, and I need a lot of people like behind this like mission. But I said, when we get married, you go to the courthouse, and all they check is that you're not married to somebody else still.
Oh, you're
Or
not
work.
cousin.
Or
Oh, yeah.
like you're not, like that you're actually single and available. Like, I hate to say it, but that's because I one time asked him, like, what are you checking for? Are you checking like background? Is he like a criminal? Is he like, I mean, like all these things you think of, but they're, oh no, we just have to make sure that if there was a marriage prior, that it's legally finalized. And I'm like, oh, right. And then when you get married, you gotta go to the courthouse. So technically you're married before you even like, I mean, there's your legal contract, right?
In
Now you're
God's
married.
eyes, you're already married. Yeah.
And I say, like, I mean, so we have this gift that we give our clients that we just started doing 9 months ago. And it's literally an artist that I love. She creates like biblical art. And the newest one is like, it's God's fingerprint. And, or no, it's his thumbprint, I think is what it is. But it's like all of like the verses. And we've started framing it and giving it to our couples to say, okay, now you are stamped with God's love, and you are not allowed to ever get divorced on our like turf, right? And if anything ever happens, you're going to come to us. So this is kind of like our solemn vow
That is
from
awesome.
this day forward that you have us for the rest of your life, and there is no way you're ever going to get divorced, right? Because I think the problem is, like I'm also saying, if you start a marriage, you have your friends, they're all on one side or the other,
Yeah.
right? And then the only other option is you go to a therapist, which that's not a bad thing, but by the time you get to a therapist, the relationship, it's like that line in the sand, and if it doesn't go well, we tried everything, we're going to walk away.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have that, like when people get married, I feel like they need to say at their weddings, now I need every one of you to be our rock, right? To be our encouragers, to build like a board of trustees around your marriage, however you want to call it, right? That are
Yeah.
going to be there when, I hate to say it, but shit hits the fan,
Yes.
you know. And I'll
It
never
will.
forget. I'll never forget in my marriage, like I went to my church group, but I was like, we're not doing well. I remember even going to the mother of the son, and she's like, well, you guys need to fix your marriage, which I agree, but I've already been trying and it's not working. So, like, what do you do? Right. And everybody just kind of, I mean, one or two couples tried to help, but they didn't really know what to say. Right. And so, in our case, obviously being relationship coach, having the blessing of introducing the two people from the very beginning, I do feel like they're my children,
Yeah.
right? Because I knew them separately before I know them together. So I have this level of respect that they both trust me. So there is that extra value, I would say. Like love insurance, I kind of say, where it's like I can hold them both accountable separately, but also respectfully together. So if you weren't matched by a matchmaker and you're in it now, and I'm like, it's never too late, but those, build that community of your board of trustees or the people, your council that will be your leader, whether it's like maybe somebody's really good in finance and somebody's really good at like communication or somebody, and then they're like there for you. God forbid. It's kind of like the insurance plan, right? God forbid if something happens, you want to kind of have this conversation prior than when you're like in the oh shit moment.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it's too late. It's too late. People are too emotional. The damage has already been done. It's very hard to forget, and truly be able to like
Move past. Yeah.
resuscitate a marriage, right? When it gets to that point. So, anyways, that's my other 2 cents of
No, and there's a lot of great things in there. And one thing that pops in my head, do you do any type of like relationship recovery program? Like, hey, like, because it truly sounds like I really do think you could help course correct a lot of relationships just because you are an independent, granted the people that would come to you for this, you haven't known them for it, but you can be an unbiased view and you're not just going to talk to them like a counselor. You know what I mean? And your knowledge of successful relationships, I think puts you in a unique position to be able to offer people a last chance hoorah. And it might be a little hard to do. This is speaking from an uneducated, no, I hate to say uneducated, but that's what it is. I'm uneducated in what this would take. But in my eyes, I really think there could be some success around like a relationship recovery program. Like, hey, if you believe you've tried everything, come talk to us. We'll see if we believe there's something we can do for you, do a consultation with them or whatever, or a free evaluation, and then see like, hey, I think there is a pathway. It sounds like you both want to, or hey, it sounds like you guys are done. Like maybe this is kind of beating a dead horse, or hey, is this something you both want to do? And obviously, if they're reaching out to you, they probably want to, or maybe it's just a one-sided thing. But I do think there's probably that could be another area that might help you reduce the amount of divorces. And granted, that's a little bit stickier of a situation. It's a little bit unhappier of one, so it might not be something you want to delve into. And I completely respect that too, because it's hard to try to recover something when you don't have any of the background like your couples would have with you. And that's just another accolade to your company and your service that you offer. I think if anyone is starting to look for something, they should start with you because
thank you.
that foundation that you offer them, they might not have the 150 people in their crowd that they can say out to, hey, I need you guys to be my rock. They might be the people who go to the courthouse themselves just because they don't have that social aspect of their life, and and so with that, if they started with you, they have that rock already. They don't have to worry about that. And to me, it's like I don't even understand how relationships start without you now. Like in my head, it's kind of weird to think about it, because it's like, man, how do we go into these things so blind? You need a license to fish, to hunt, to but you don't need one to do the two most essential things in our lives. And I say that because you're either a product of it or you're in it. So,
Hmm.
and that is a family,
Yeah.
and so it's we educate on all these things besides for that. And so I really do. I mean, I hate, because when you truly think about, like, hey, you need a license to have a child, that's kind of messed up. And yeah, it does sound messed up, but no, yeah,
Everybody should go through parenting. I mean, we kind of do. You should, right? Like you go through Lamaze class, right? Women obviously do, and hopefully the
yeah,
guys there or whatever. But it's like they should. I mean, when you get divorced, and unfortunately, I can speak on that part of it, but is like they then after it, they make you take a parenting class. So silly, right? But I understand why, because now they want you to learn how to co-parent well. Well, why didn't we learn that stuff prior to actually see, do we even have good parenting skills in the first place together? Because half the reason marriages fall apart, it's either over finances or it's over like they don't parent the same, right? And nobody talks about that because nobody knows what they're going to be like. But if you actually start talking about all these premarital things while you're dating, that'll also save all the headache and the expense of a really expensive wedding, a terrible divorce, and now I hate to say it, kids that have to go through the
they didn't choose
crappy
that.
scenario, two homes, two whatever, right? And it's just, I mean, but it's also a good thing, right? Because they have more people to love them and everything else. But yeah, so we do have a course. It's called Love. It's called Keep the Marriage Fresh for married couples. It's really like a refresher. I feel like it's meant to be fun. I have worked with couples before that they're like friends of other couples we've matched, and they're like, oh, they're just kind of at their wits end. You're so good at like helping. What do we do? And I'm like, well, we'll put them through the Love Starts With You course individually. And because there's like homework that you do, there's accountability, there's like coaching, I always say is like the best path kind of when it comes to that, because it's fun. It's meant to be fun. You guys are meant to like, let's go back to the beginning now with all the knowledge we have and fall in love all over again instead of like this like line in the sand and not say we try. So yeah, and our couch talk course is for our dating and engaged because I'm like, it's really important to know all the marriage stuff to kind of have that manual prior. And I know you said too, like I appreciate you saying what you did because so many people don't know what we do. So many people have never thought of matchmaking before. They only think of it like as arranged marriages, right? And so it's like my mission to kind of speak in the Christian market because churches will say all day long, they went to school, like pastors went to school for seminary, like preaching the word. They didn't
Yeah,
go to school to be people's psychologists or their marriage counselors, right? But the first place you go to is a church. And so we work
yeah.
with so many churches because they're like, yes, help the singles, help the couples. We don't have time. Like, it's not that they don't have time, but
That's
that's
not their
not what
expertise.
right, exactly. Other than being prayerful or just, also just giving kind of life stories, but building that support around you. So we have a lot of our couples today and we're right now one of our missions are in this coming year is to start building like an online kind of group and build more technology so people can come in to like a hub and they kind of pick and choose through a bunch of questions of what they have going on in their particular situation and then the hub kind of directs them to like okay, this course or this group of mentors or that group of like prayer warriors for all phases of like I feel like I want to start it even I want to have something for the teenagers. So
That would
it's
be
like
amazing.
yeah, like the teenagers, then in your 20s, like your 30s, your 40s, and then even also like, single, dating, engaged, married, then also for our single parents, right, that go through that phase. And then now the newest thing that we're obviously starting to work with too is empty nesters. Because now
That's a
they got
big one.
married young, they really haven't done much, and now it's like, now what do we do without our kids? Because the kids became their identity, and so they don't really know who they are anymore. So it's like this hub we're trying to build technology wise, where everybody can kind of work as a community in one place, through all the phases of relationships. And I know there's things out there like that, but I also feel with our ability and our community already built around people that really invested in a relationship from the beginning is a great resource too, and just have pastors that are also pouring in on everybody. And I mean, the one thing when you think about matchmaking and people hear the cost, they're like sticker shocked, right? Because all they have is like dating for free on their own, or apps that are about $50 or $60 a month, who knows, right?
Yeah.
And so when they hear our prices, they're like, whoa, like, there's no way I would pay that much, right? For like love. Are you kidding me? And I'm like, well, how much have you spent on your boat insurance? How much have you spent on your house insurance? How much did you spend on your wedding and then maybe a divorce? When you look at it, this is like the best love insurance ever, because we're going to stay with you.
Yeah.
And we're also going to make sure that you get it right, not only from the beginning, but also the continuation. And so when you look at the price of that and you think about spending, I don't know, $30,000 on a car or 16,000 on a beat up car for your kid,
Yeah.
that really, how long does a car last, and how, what does that do for you other than, yes, get you around? But at the end of the day, when you actually think about it in that way, like, love is priceless
It's a
compared to
lifetime.
like the cost of a car, right?
It is.
That-
And so, no, yeah, I mean, you know, it's it's just so I know I probably sound like a broken record, but it's astonishing how little we invest into our relationships and our knowledge of it. I was kind of a special breed when it came down to children. The first time I held my niece when I was 12 years old, I have the picture of it somewhere actually around here. It's in a frame with a quote that I like that I usually keep somewhere, but I don't know where it was put. But anyways, it's me next to my mother. I'm in this big old 90s windbreaker jacket, holding her, and I just had this like awkward smile, and I know exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh my, like the feeling, the euphoric feeling, the buzz that was coming over me. It was just like, this is what I want. I want to look at this little child and know it's mine. And I'll never forget when I first held my daughter. Everyone in the room was like, Nico, because I had been up. I own it. I don't. I still own it technically. I had the LLC for it, but I haven't used it since a little bit into COVID, just because of everything that was going on. But I was redoing a basement in Cicero, and then I was ripping down a ceiling for a guy in Arlington Heights, and I was working both jobs with my daughter. When my wife's water broke, and I had to then. I had been working from 4 in the morning, and it was 10 o'clock at night. And so I'd been working all day. I remember when I walked into the delivery room, all the nurses looked at me, and she's like, "That's my husband." I was just covered in drywall, like completely like white.
like a train of your like footprints back behind you, right? Like,
and so everyone knew I was tired. I literally, in the interim waiting, because I think it only took her like maybe 3 hours, and then boom, we were on the go page. And so I got 3 hours of sleep. I woke up, and so when I was holding my daughter after about 5 hours, it was a really quick delivery, thankfully. I was holding her and just staring at her, and I could hear everyone going, "Nico, hey, are you okay? Are you okay?" Like they thought I fell asleep holding her, but I was just so locked into her eyes because I instantly got transported back to that moment of holding my niece. And I'm like, I got it. This is exactly what I thought it would be. And so, but what that did for me is I read every What to Expect When Expecting that had came out from the time I was 14 to the time I was 25, pretty much. And so I literally have like 5 volumes somewhere in this house. And then, What to Expect with a Toddler, the some of the subsequent ones. I didn't read all the volumes in those ones, but the What to Expect When Expecting, I wanted to read the multiple volumes because I wanted to see how much they went back and forth or what changed with childcare over that time. And it is very interesting. There's so many things that where like I really feel like they switch it just to kind of sell a new edition. And I hate to sound cynical like that, but there was so many things that they would say in one year's edition, and they would go and reverse it in the next year's edition, but then they would switch it back to in the following year's edition. It's like, wait, are they just doing this to say that they have a new edition? And so it made me have to do more research on it. But like I knew way too much about children at a young age, and so it did prepare me to be a good parent. And one of my friends actually commended me. I'm not even trying to just pat my own back, but it really touched me when she said it, because I was talking about her. I was like, I love seeing you interact with your children because you're not a pushover, but you are stern. You show them love, but you let them know that, hey, you're the one in charge, and you're so great with your kids. And she's like, honestly, Nico, she's like, I think the same thing about you, and you do very well with your kids. I see the way you explain stuff to Skylar, and you are so on point with it. And I'm just like, thank you. No one's ever said that to me, and I do really appreciate that, because I do feel like I take a lot of time, and I have the patience with her. And I do feel that like I have a very well-rounded balance between sternness and, like everyone, I make mistakes. I sometimes will scream when I shouldn't, like when
Right. We
uh
all have those mental. We all are human, and we have those breakdown like
yeah.
moments.
And so, it makes me feel horrible. Like I hate when I scream at her, but like there was one time when she closed her brother's hand in the gate, and I was like, Skylar, like cuz it's not even like mad at her, but it's like his hand, like, you don't break his hand. And she just immediately takes it as like, oh, she's in trouble, so she gets all upset. And I'm like, oh, that hurts more than his hand. Even if his hand was broken, seeing
I know.
you cry, just, it rips
But
out
then
my
you go
heart.
and you have a conversation with her, right? So she understands why it happened. Because I think the thing is, like, I don't know about you, but like my parents' generation or whatever, I remember just being told no all the time. Don't do this. Stop it. No.
With no explanation either.
With no explanation. So you just go through like your childhood always thinking like, I'm always wrong. I can never do anything right. And why? Like, why can't I? Right. And so, like, with my daughter, my mom will say, like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, I mean, I think it was their generation. Like, they would slap your wrist. They would just say no, right? For no because they didn't communicate like we do now. But yet it's so like, I think now it's like when I yell or I have moments where it's like, oh, you're just like, and everybody's like pushing on you, and you're like, and you just blow up, right? For no reason. Like, you have those, we're all human. And then it's like, okay, let me go back and apologize to everybody that there was just like, it was like the perfect storm, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
nobody deserved
100%.
that. And I'm really sorry. We're all going to have those moments. Like, please forgive me, right? Opposed to like back in the day, it's like you never knew anything. It just got brushed under the rug. You never really understood it. And then you wonder why people don't know how to communicate.
Yeah. And it's, again, the educational standpoint is essential in every aspect of our life, and that's why, I mean, the book reading was good for me. And but
Oh, and the other thing that I was going to say, actually, when you were on, there's an app that I'm going to send you. I don't know what it's called right now, so forgive me
okay.
for whatever company this is. But somebody, I think it was actually my OBGYN office or something, told me about this app. I have no idea.
Hmm.
But when I got pregnant, it was like a weekly update. And you put in like when they were born to whatever. And I think I'm sure you could do it for your kids now. But to this day, and I don't read it every week. Of course, when I remember being pregnant, I was like, "What's gonna?" And it was so weird because it was an app. It wasn't a book. And again, I'm not against books, but it was like, because it was an app, it was like trending, right? So it's always able to be updated on like a book that sometimes can be outdated, right?
Yeah.
But what's cool to it is this day is every once in a while where I'm like, what is she doing? Like my daughter, because now I think it comes like monthly. Like now it's like a monthly like newsletter kind of thing that comes. And every time, even when I was pregnant, it was like, and your son, your son, right?
Yeah,
That's like
18 months. Yeah.
18 months, right? So it's good for, I feel like, his age too. Now, like 4 or 5, it kind of gets into like monthly. But every time I would read it on a weekly basis, it was already like a week ahead of what was about to happen. And it literally happened. So it was kind of like, not like a magic ball, I feel like, or whatever, but it was like, it made me, into this day when I read things, I take some information out of it of like, oh, I should be doing this. Or it also gives me the accolades like, okay, I'm like doing the right thing right now, right? And you need
100%.
that as a parent. So I'll send you that, because you guys should you should put this app on your phone, because it's nice to just get that, because it keeps you current and ahead of things.
The reassurance is definitely a necessity, because I need that, and it's hard to sometimes describe a situation to someone else and be like, hey, did I handle this the right way? And I do that, and I do ask my friends that. The one girl that I had mentioned, Nina, I've known her since we were in high school, and she's the one who gave me the accolades. But like, she's one that I trust her parenting. She's such a level-headed person. She's always been like that since we were younger. Always such a big heart, and so like I bounce a lot of it off her. But she has 3 kids. She right now her husband's working out of state, so she's kind of doing the whole single mom thing, and she's not single, that's not what it is, but she's doing the single mom thing, if that makes sense. And so she's busy, and so I can't always bounce things off her, and so having that will be great. And no, I definitely appreciate that.
We've got like our podcast. And I always tell everybody, like, if you've not listened to our podcast before, like, plug into our podcast because we talk about advice for single, dating, engaged, and married. So we have a whole audience of all different. I mean, click on the topics that are of interest, right? Because we've been doing podcasts for over 2 years now, so there's a lot.
Okay.
But so there's like useful information. Like I have some of my friends that are like, I have no time to call you, but I didn't know what to do. So I went in your podcast and I clicked on the thing and I got an answer from you, right? And I'm like, okay, great.
That's awesome.
But we are excited to be able to like have another site that's just going to be the hub kind of for relationships for everybody, but it's in work in progress right now to build that. But
And my second episode I did was with I've known him since I was in third grade. His father, literally, I was a second son to him, pretty much. I mean, his father is an amazing individual too, but he built and maintains Navy Pier's website. And so I could give you his contact information. You could look at his I don't even know what they call themselves. I believe they're internet site or whatever. They maintain websites and they build websites for clients. So I could pass your information on to him.
I
And
always
they are I believe they are a smaller firm, but you get a lot more from that. You know what I mean? Like he is a very dedicated individual. I mean, there's times where, like, because we were playing video games actually last night together, and just online, but a lot of the times, like, we try to fight for an hour because we play Age of Empires, so it's a strategy game, like a war strategy game. So like one match will take like maybe an hour or two to kind of accomplish, and so we fight to find that time. And he's always, oh hey man, I'm on my way home right now, but when I get home I still gotta hop back on the computer and everything. And so they're a very dedicated firm. But yeah, no,
awesome.
and yeah, I
That's
would.
how we are too. Like we're boutique, and I say as large as we keep growing, as long as we still have that boutique relationship with each couple, each single, each client, and whatnot. I'm like, that's all that matters to me. So if we start to like, lose that, like we can continue to scale, we can continue to grow because we want to help more people. But I'm like, if we lose that intimate relationship with each one of our clients and couples or whatever, then I'm like, then I'm out.
You
I
lose a lot
think
of the
that
value though. Yeah, and
you
you're
lose the
right.
value. So I love that people think that way too. Because yeah,
So yeah, I will. I'll give you his contact information. I'll get what I don't know where he would pay. I don't know if he would talk to you directly or maybe pass you to someone. Then because he's obviously the on the builder side and the more the background of the stuff and maintaining the website and so on. But I will give you whatever information he passes on to me, and maybe you could see if it's a fit for you.
yeah.
Um,
We have somebody that does it currently. The biggest thing right now is we're interviewing a bunch of different technology people
yeah.
to build this hub that we're talking about. That'll
Hmm.
be like its own entity, like its own site off of our own page.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'll pass that on to him and I'll tell him to watch this so he has kind of an idea. Um, a couple things that have popped up that I wanted to kind of bounce back to. You said when God came into your life. I think that's an important thing to speak about. So can you kind of talk about before he did and your journey to God and then how it's kind of changed your life? If that's not too much. I mean, that's a lot. I know that's a
No,
lot.
yeah. I mean, I grew up in the All American family because my mom always went to church. I think my dad did, but they weren't really as religious there. They weren't like as routinely going, I guess, as much as my mom installed our family to go. We went to a Presbyterian church.
Okay.
It was, the full like robes and, the old hymnal kind of music. It wasn't like what it is today. That's like, new contemporary kind of songs and things like that. And we would go to like our Bible classes, right? My sister and I, and then my parents would be in service. And then when you get older, you kind of say, I don't want to go to Bible classes anymore. And you kind of sit with your parents. My dad would fall asleep every single Sunday. And I think it's just because, well, I mean, it's soothing. Let's be honest, we're running around. Like, my dad falls asleep to like, whatever. And it was like, so to me, I remember always poking him. It's very methodical. I don't know what they're, I mean, I don't really understand what they're saying. I really didn't care. Like, I mean, it's awful, right? And I mean, I was involved in like the choir because my parents signed us up for that, like things like that. But the difference I want to say between my sister and my sister's Bible class were all of her friends in school.
Oh,
My Bible group were people that I didn't know or in school I didn't hang out with, which sounds so terrible because to this day I love everybody. This
yeah.
is the part that I hate about hate about social media, and I hate about like, Facebook in regards of it's like it's a friend click or like groups or cliques or things like that. But when you're young, that's what you do, right? So you get involved in these cliques and you don't even realize how either superficial or just mean to other kids or people that you are. And because of that, I didn't really have God in the center of my heart like my sister did, because they were all fellowshipping together because she wanted to. When there were like retreats or things like that or lock-ins, I was like, yeah, I don't want to go because I don't want to hang out with those people, right? Like it's awful. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So I couldn't wait to go on to college, and there was no way I was going to church because I have now Sunday free days. So, you go off to college, you start to lose your relationship. I wasn't forced to go anymore. My parents moved. We're from upstate New York. My dad retired young. They had a lot down in South Carolina, and they moved away, right? And so through college, didn't go or whatever. I moved to then Orlando, got into a group of people, just people that I met through what I was doing in work. I was in the bridal industry a little bit. I think that was probably another stepping stone into the love world, right? To like
Mhm.
watch brides and hear their stories of everything love related. And there's definitely a thing called bridezillas. I also learned people that shouldn't get married and how crazy the families are. And I think to myself, like, wow, like if I only had my course back then, I don't think some of those people would have gotten married. Anyways, here nor there. And then I remember, like I was dating everybody that I was surrounding myself around did not have faith. And the guy that I was dating at the time, he was a Catholic and he would not go. But he told me if I was to go to church, I need to go to his church. And so I said, well, the only reason I would go to church would be if you went with me, because I wouldn't choose a Catholic church. No offense to Catholics. I have a ton of Catholic friends, right?
Yeah.
Like, not,
Yeah.
I'm like, I wouldn't choose Catholic, right? And somebody invited me to go to a non-denominational church, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like starting to go to that. And then it put a wedge in our relationship because he's like, no, that's so wrong because it's so different than Catholicism and the way that they practice. So then it kind of became like a tear in our relationship, but I was so in love with him, so I was also like, oh, screw it, like I don't need God, like, I mean, it didn't, I'm living my best life. Like I literally will say my 20s in Orlando was my playground.
Hmm.
I don't know how well you know Orlando.
So I lived only for 2.5 years. I lived in Port St. Lucie, so that's like an hour and a half south of
Okay,
Orlando.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Orlando. I mean, it's just like any other big city. I mean, I'm coming from like Rochester, upstate New York. I never really grew up in the city. We lived in the suburbs, and then I went out off to college in Buffalo. But it wasn't like it was my first like big city, right? There's like an international airport, like it's like all these things, right? And so I was living the high life. Like I was dating a doctor at the time. Like I was in my world that was like a simple suburban life has now turned into like this club world of wealth,
Yeah.
right? And so I started to get into this place of my mind like, oh my gosh, this is like so good, right? Thinking. Until then, you hang around with that crowd long enough and it starts to just plead like just diminish who you are as a person, because now you're living for things and you're not living for anything else.
Yeah.
And so I was getting so far away from my faith, obviously, in that relationship. And then full circle, basically, through that, I remember feeling like, my parents would keep saying, oh, you need to go to church, you need to go to church, you need to go to single groups, right? And you go, right? So you go to a church and then you go to a singles group, which this is so wrong. This is why like churches love, when I have conversations with them, and they don't want meetup groups, right? But then you go to church because you like the church, and then they have a singles group. So you go to a singles group, but then you're like, well, I wouldn't date any of these people. So you don't go, which is totally the wrong reason for even going to those singles groups. But also, everybody knows everybody's single. I mean, I have so many clients and matches that we've received from people that started singles groups.
Yeah.
They did it for the right reasons, but it also turns into they're like, well, there's this boy that I kind of like. And I'm like, this is why churches are like, they don't want to promote it in some regards. Nobody wants to walk into the room that says singles, like have that label, like I am single. And so the married people shouldn't be talking to me, right? Because we're a temptation. Like there's all these things that like go through people's judgmental minds
Yeah.
because there's meant to be married and fruitful. That's what the Bible says, right?
Hmm.
Find somebody, date with intention, don't be together until you're like, married, all these things, right? And so I then was kind of getting turned away from Christ again because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And then it was definitely a blessing. Like I said, my dad had gotten ill in South Carolina. He had had a couple of mini heart attacks, and to this day, he still has some heart issues. But um, the guy that I was with during that time, he had started to find his faith, and he was the one that I got engaged to, which was a blessing in disguise. But my dad needed help with his nonprofit. He needed help with like the marketing side of things, which was my wheelhouse, obviously, background. And I was blessed to call my boss and say, hey, can I work up in South Carolina for a little while to help him? And that is where it was like God's mission. He'd been trying his whole life to get me to South Carolina, I feel
Yeah.
like. And
No.
it's kind of like when you think about the path of where you go and all the times that I cannot believe that I like woke up or I was like in these situations and I got out of them because I was just on a totally different trajectory than where I am today. I mean, it also showed me things that are insane with like addiction, with pornography, with drugs, with alcohol, all this stuff that I was like, I mean, I feel like I learned about like the sex trade world before it even was like a thing, right? Because people were like, I mean, it was just it was like a, to this day, if my parents ever knew what I had seen, and I never want my daughter to see, they
Yeah.
would have died, right? And I'm so grateful that God believed in me. He
Hmm.
eventually directed me to him, so that now to this day, like I wouldn't live any other way. And all the things that I thought I had in this lifestyle that I was like in my 20s, your like dream, right? I look at it as how empty it was, how lonely it was, how I really had nothing. And you were just fighting to try to keep up with a lifestyle that people forced you to almost think you needed, but you never really did, right? You can't take any of it with you.
No.
So when I then got engaged and was planning like the wedding or whatever up in South Carolina, that's when I started studying relationships and I was going through premarital because my dad was like, you're not going to get married until you do premarital. And my dad then finally found his faith. He stopped falling asleep at church because he found the right church. And I think just because he was retired, he wasn't so tired anymore, right? Like
Yeah. 100%.
he was, and he moved to South Carolina because all he wanted to do was golf every day. And my mom didn't know what to do. So she kept going to church. And I think I shared this on the last one about like how my dad's like, you're kind of becoming a Jesus freak, right? And now he's a bigger believer today. He leads Bible groups. And it's just incredible to watch because he's like, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had a dream, or God spoke to me in this dream that he needed my dad to have more of a purpose than golf and go do something in the community. And then that's when the nonprofits that I talked about, I kind of like saw through the eyes of him because I was like, it's not about working 100 hours a week. It's not about like whatever the next pretty car is or the next beautiful outfit you want. And it's truly about who people are. So I feel through everything that I'm so blessed to have now, which is so much richer than I ever had. But, God gave me all these experiences to relate to people as I always felt like a kid, like the ugly duckling. But God said, I'm going to make you shine and I'm going to make you all that I see you to be so that someday you can help and empower others. And so it's amazing when you stop, when things don't make sense and you're to a point where you're like falling on your knees because you just got to survive, right?
Yeah.
And how God just empowers your entire existence, and you can get through anything. So that's my
And
story.
no, that's awesome. And it's it's all those experiences that allowed you to be who you are. And that's why I always like to talk about those things, because you didn't just get to where you are. And I feel like that's a big misconception that a lot of younger generations think. They think that, you go through this linear path, you're there and you stay there. When in reality, I this customer said it the best to me. She said, you are three destinations away from where you're supposed to be as a child. So, you're going to go on three different paths, and those paths are all very important. You may not realize what you're learning or that you're learning, but you are, and those paths are going to teach you who you need to become. And, God's going to put these lessons in front of you, and how you decide to interpret them is up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, sorry. Um, and that comes with free will, and that's being able to see the light and being able to interpret the light, because sometimes you can see things and they may seem like a blessing from God, but really it's the devil dangling that carrot in front of you, and you bite at it because everyone wants a carrot, and it looks like it's the right thing, but in reality it wasn't. And so walking with God, and understanding how another person maybe walked with God and walked away from him, or didn't walk with God and then started walking with him, is important, because we may wander off, but he's still that helicopter parent watching over us, not in a bad way, but he's still always there watching and walking with us. And when we decide to come back to him, he's there with open arms.
Yeah.
And
And
that,
it's like that. I mean, God has the master plan, right? And I mean, just like in the Bible, how many times did he auto correct, the apostles and like people that he was like, okay, like I'm going to do this, but you're going to learn from that. I mean, he was always teaching us, always teaching us. It was never really like, I mean, ultimately his goal is here. He's going to just navigate us through the seas in all different ways to get there. And in order to get here, he knows me to learn all these life lessons. And so, I mean, I definitely feel that if I went on to fashion like I wanted to as a little kid, I definitely wouldn't be inspiring and helping as many people as I do today. I mean, maybe, but clearly he's like, nope, I'm just going to give you another bad relationship that's going to keep you here so that we can continue on this whole relationship journey so you can relate to more people.
no, and I mean, without those experiences, you wouldn't be as good as you are today. And so, I I always ask God, no matter how the lesson comes, please let it come, because I know that not every lesson will be enjoyable. And I think when I looking through that perspective now, how I do, it makes life a whole lot easier, because you look at a bad situation and you're like, oh man, this is horrible, but okay, what can I learn from this? What is underlying in this situation that is meant to be pulled from it, not the bad symptom of it. And so I know that makes my life a whole lot easier. And if it's one thing I would suggest to people, is if you can start to look at every situation as a learning experience, you will stop seeing situations as bad. You'll see a situation for what it is.
Right. Right.
And so I think that's super essential. We are coming up on 11 o'clock, and I have to go to the city. I have a meeting that I have out there with my union. But I wanted to, there was something I wanted you to do before you got off. It was, tell people if someone were to see this, how they could get in contact with you. What should their first steps be? Like the first couple things they should do to get themselves ready to either interact with you or to start on their relationship journey, with you in mind of being the contact point. Is there anything they should do ahead of time to kind of get themselves ready for it, or is there anything they should be prepared for, or how does that look? Say I'm it's me coming for the first time, and is there anything that they should be doing ahead of time to get themselves ready?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I'm glad you asked that because I feel like I don't think people ask that question enough. But I mean, first of all, you can go to our website, which is like the number one true match.com. And you can schedule a consultation session, is what we call it. It's about 20 minutes. And really, it's to just have a conversation with one of ourselves on on our team. I mean, every once in a while I'll jump on those calls because I just want to hear what's happening in the company, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, I'm talking to you. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm in it still, right? I'm like here, I'm present, right? But we do it, I mean, on our website, it looks like it's totally just for singles, right? But I tell everybody, contact us, email us, send a message, we'll call you, we'll tell you, we'll hear a little bit about your story, kind of where you're at and where you would like to be. And whether that's through the matchmaking side of things, whether that's through the coaching side of things, whether that's a course, whether that's like preparing you or enriching you or finding you the love of your life. Like I always tell everybody, schedule that consultation session and call us or email us. And then, us being the experts of what we are, there's no cost. It's completely complimentary to kind of help maybe give the next step or direction. If you're single and you're thinking about or wanting to become a client, then we do what's called like a matchmaking consultation session that's about 60 minutes long. If you're not local, we do it via Zoom. And we really go through like your needs and wants analysis. We have everybody take the 5 love language, the personality quiz before. Obviously, we also we can't control chemistry, but we can get it really close. So we always say like send us photos of who you're attracted to, right? Because we want to like make sure in that session we have a good idea of feeling confident working together that we could bring you that type of individual. We do background checks on everybody. We do a really full vetting verification process for our clients in that regards. And then if you're single and you can't go the client route, I think everybody wants to be a client, but some can't afford it or whatever, right? We also have something on our website where you can fill out a profile and be in our candidate pool.
Yeah.
Where we always go to our database first when we have clients, and we have clients globally. So wherever you live, we just want to know you exist. So if anybody out there knows somebody that's an incredible Christian, like ready for a relationship oriented person, and they could be a client, great. We'd love to like do a session with them to see if we're the right fit for them. Or we'd love to consider them and interview them for a match for our client. And then we also do. So the session is like $350 for those 60 minutes. Sometimes it's like 90. So I always say block a little bit more time because we need that extra, just conversation to make sure we're on the right plan, to create the right roadmap, to see where God's taking you, to come up with a plan together. And then we also do like what I love during the needs and wants analysis that we do with everybody is we really start creating prayerful words to start praying for our future mate, which is a really cool like assessment kind of cool thing to do together when we do that. But then we also do sessions where it's like an hour just sitting and understanding where their relationship is at and where they want it to go and how to come up with a plan and giving them ideas of how to plant the seeds in the conversations at the right time with their mate to be able to get to a point to enrich their relationship too, or to start premarital, right? Too, or like the questions while you're dating. So yeah, just basically whatever phase you're at right now. All we have is that website, obviously, but there's plenty of ways on the website you can reach out to us, and we would love to follow up and have more conversations about what the right plan is to set you up for a relationship dream forever, obviously, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I personally think that you should be the first starting point for every relationship. And so, because like I said, the educational part behind it and the fact that you stay with the couple is just such a big part, because you're not just, okay, we finished our job, bye bye. No, that it's a continuous growing entity, and it's for lack of better terms, it really is though. And so with that, it needs to be nourished, and you guys offer that, and you guys do that, and you guys take the time to care for your clients. And so it's just great to see someone doing this and attacking a problem that so many people have become complacent with. And being able to see that problem and being able to find the gaps in it and fill those gaps is a great thing. And, I thank you for that, because there needs to be more people like you in the world who have went through something they know was bad, that they see as bad, and they, I say it's bad, but that you're just, if it's a necessity, yeah, divorce can be good too. But in essence, we want to keep a family unit together. And so you were able to
Mhm.
see your situation was troublesome to you, I guess is the better way to say it. And so you didn't want someone else to go through that troublesome thing. And I think if we all did that a little bit more, looked at, hey, do I does someone deserve to go through this? Does someone need to go through this? I don't think they do. And so how can I prevent the next person from falling victim to it, or falling into that situation? I hate using that such strong words like victim and stuff like that, but to not fall into that,
The
so
same trap. Like you don't do the same routine over and over again. And yes, unfortunately, a lot of us, have had a bad picker, and we didn't know who somebody was, and we had to go through divorce. But I always say, if when you put that oxygen mask on yourself, and somebody brings you down and doesn't elevate you and make you better, together, that was not the right relationship that God had in mind for you. So
100%.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us for another episode of The Sound of Sosa. I have Renee. She is the CEO and owner of One True Match, a truly beautiful inside and outside individual that cares about her endeavors and is a God-centered person. And so, when you go to her, you're going to get someone who truly cares, who is not only coming from a passion of her own, but from a passion of God as well, which is an unstoppable force. And so, thank you everyone for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you guys again on the next episode. And again, if you need to find her, I'll let her give her website again, just so you can have that.
Thank you so much for having me on. It is a blessing that you are helping spread the word, and anybody else listening to this. Everybody needs love, right? So just come to us, send them to us. We're here for them. And I'm just so blessed that we connected to have this conversation. So you can find us at the number one, true, TRUE, match, MATCH.com. And I hope to talk to you soon.
All righty. Well, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.